Hi, I'm Phil Curry. The thoughts in this presentation are the result of my 45-year career, which has evolved through three distinct phases. The first phase was in sales, branch management and executive leadership roles in local, national and international agribusiness organisations. I was initiated to international business in this first phase, with responsibilities for an export office in one position, followed by responsibility for international marketing as part of my position as marketing manager in another. Then I spent 25 years as a management consultant specialising in marketing and business management. During that phase I completed approximately 400 separate consultancy assignments, and quite a few of them involved the development of new international markets for clients. The current phase, as an academic and researcher, includes being responsible for teaching agribusiness marketing, exporting and management to undergraduates, postgraduates and supervising PhD candidates. My international business experience currently stands at around 75 overseas trips and 2,000 meetings in 25 countries for the purposes of collecting market intelligence and/or negotiating business for and on behalf of Australian clients, and 25 international trips for academic purposes with students and involved with Australian aid projects in Asia. This presentation focuses specifically on a process I have used many times to enter new international markets. It is also relevant for domestic market expansion. Of course, you can find many tips for new exporters, but I've limited myself to just 3. You can read them for yourself, and they will be reflected in the following slides. Just pause the video if you need more time to read and reflect on any of the slides in this presentation. For the sake of this presentation, I've assumed you've prioritised one or more markets to visit. I've also prepared a video titled Prioritising International Markets if you are yet to do that. It is important that you prepare for your first visit. The first step is to prepare a list of the types of businesses that you would like to visit. I always did my best to meet with the largest importers, distributors, processors and retailers in value chains of interest whenever I undertook one of these trips. I aimed to meet with 15 of them in each market in a week. It may be best to ask an organisation such as Austrade to help set up those appointments. Austrade has local connections and the success rate is likely to be much higher than attempting to set the meetings up yourself. Of course, it is not always possible to obtain Austrade assistance, and as a consultant I have also set up interviews in many markets myself. My own experience in setting up meetings is to request to meet with the owners of smaller organisations and senior personnel involved with new product development and marketing managers in larger organisations. I have found that purchasing managers, whilst extremely knowledgeable, can be very time poor and more interested in extracting information from you than sharing. When you're setting the meetings up, explain that you're interested in the market and would like to learn more, including their interest in and evaluation of your product. Explain that it's not a sales visit because you have not even decided to select the market yet, so that you can see that they are a significant operator in the market for your product and that you would value a meeting to learn from them and to show them your product. I think that you can expect a success rate of 40 to 50% by taking this approach. If it's a lot less, then maybe the market is not right for your product. Most companies will be curious, but I suggest that you don't tell them too much before you meet. How you conduct your initial exploratory meetings is really important. If they turn into sales calls, you will lose access to the most sensitive information that you would otherwise be able to obtain. If possible, it's a really good idea to take product samples with you. It serves as a bit of an icebreaker, and you can ask about labelling, packaging, product characteristics, and even ask people with whom you are meeting to compare your product with existing products available on the market, and provide you with price and quality information that will allow you to make product positioning decisions. When I started conducting market research in countries that required an interpreter, I thought that it would damage the communication between me and the people with whom I was meeting. However, the exact opposite occurred, and I found that the time that it took the interpreter to communicate in each direction allowed me to consider the next question and to watch the faces of those responding for visual clues about their answers. I cannot stress enough how important it is to avoid allowing these visits to become sales calls. The moment you do that, the willingness to share information is reduced substantially, as the people with whom you are meeting immediately go on the defensive. The longer the meeting goes as an exchange of information, the more likely you are to receive useful, sensitive data. My experience of 2,000 meetings in 25 countries over 25 years is that the average time for one of these meetings is 1.5 hours, but they can easily extend to 2 hours. When I first started doing these interviews and was asked about pricing, I was naive enough to attempt to answer. However, with experience, I learned that it was far more beneficial to explain that we did not have sufficient information about costs of exporting, market entry, and market support to allow pricing calculations to be done. And I apologised for not being able to provide indicative pricing. I then asked them to help me understand all of the potential competitor products on the market and to explain to me the relative quality and pricing positions of each, so that I could use that to identify possible gaps in the product lines that might suit the Australian product. This discussion often led to a commentary about the relative market shares, quality and other characteristics of many of the products that existed in each market. On many occasions after the meeting had been concluded and we were getting up to leave, I would be asked what the next action was. This is an expression of interest, even a buying signal. In reply, I always simply replied that we were meeting a number of people during the week and that we would take all of the information that we gathered back to Australia, where it would be analysed, and we would decide if and how to proceed in the country. I then promised to keep in touch and let them know as decisions were made. It is important to return home with information that you have collected and to analyse it thoroughly and carefully. Not only will this help you to determine which market of your very short list is the most attractive, it also allows you to consider the alternative distribution channel partners who you met. Selecting the right distribution channel partner in an export market is one of the most important decisions to be made, so taking care to ensure the correct decisions are made is really important. It is so important that it is well and truly justifies one or more return visits to the market to meet with potential importer distributor partners and to evaluate whether they share your company's values and will be willing to adopt a collaborative partnership approach to managing your product. This is an example of a market research visit that I conducted in Japan in 1996. It's a good example because it demonstrates the extent to which people will prepare for an initial research meeting if you can set the meeting up and conduct them in the right manner. The product in this instance was pickled ginger, known as gari in Japan, and is normally consumed with sushi. Austrade provided great assistance for this project and set up meetings with many of the largest importers, processors, distributors and users of gari across the country. A technical manager from the client and I visited more than 20 companies over a 2-week period and asked a similar set of questions at each of them. This photo shows the extent of preparation of the very first company that we met. As you can see, they provided samples of the full range of different qualities of gari and gave us samples in the packaging to bring home. They gave us feedback on the product about how it would be improved for the Japanese market. The second photo was taken in a meeting of sushi manufacturers and shows how they prepared for our meeting. The pieces of paper you can see indicate the prices paid for the different grades of gari used in different applications. The final photo was taken in an importer's yard and shows how the ginger and other forms of preserved vegetables arrive and are stored. We were shown through the factory and of course provided with an opportunity to ask questions. Every one of the 20 to 25 meetings provided new and confirmatory information about the samples we had, manufacturing processes to achieve the right product characteristics for the Japanese market, costs they paid to existing suppliers, a great deal of market information, including the size of the market for each of the different grades of gari, the different applications and problems that existed in the supply chain that could be solved by the Australian ginger. By the end of every meeting, the people with whom we met had established the start of a relationship of trust and confidence with us, and it was easy to believe that any one of them could become a customer. By the end of this trip, I firmly believed that the technical manager and I were probably the most informed people in the world on the subject of market opportunities and threats for ginger in Japan. I can show many examples of how I set up and conducted interviews over my 25 years as a consultant and the types of information that I was able to obtain. The evidence of what can be achieved exists in those examples. If you would like to see samples of what you could achieve by adopting this approach, please let me know. As far as I can tell, my approach to exporting is almost unique. It does not start with developing a USP for your Australian product and attempting to sell it overseas. It does not train you to have an elevator pitch. Instead, it will guide you through a process that will allow you to identify the most attractive market segments wherever they exist in the world and to establish a relationship of trust and confidence with the right partner in the right countries that will maximize the chances of sustainable profitable sales for the long term. If you would like help to guide you through the process that I have learned through my lifetime, please give me a call.